The Madman! Welcome to my ratings for Paladin, Priest, and Rogue. Paladin has been known for dragons, and this set does offer Paladin a bunch of dragon synergy. That's an efficient buff in Sand Breath. That's a super good Discover card, 3 mana 2/3 with Lifesteal that gives you another card. That Dragon Rider Talritha has a chance to go infinite off of your dragons. Nozdormu is a 4 mana 8/8, and Amber Watcher blows Antique Hillbot out of the water. Are you surprised to find that I'm calling this archetype not even tier 3? It would make for a control dragon archetype, and I think that the cards for control Paladin just aren't there. I don't think you can compete with the other stuff. If you saw the other videos, everyone's getting unfair stuff, and yeah, this stuff looks pretty good, but when you look at the grand scheme of unfairness, I'm rating the Dragon Paladin not even tier 3, which seems insane. What are you thinking, Trump? Well, here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking Sand Breath 1 star as, not even necessarily that strong that you would put into a dragon control deck. Bronze Explorer 3 stars because it might be good enough to see play in other decks than dragon decks. Dragon Rider Talritha 2 stars. Nozdormu the Timeless 2 stars. Amber Watcher 2 stars. Because Highlander Paladin is an aggressive deck, it probably doesn't want the 5 mana 4/6 restore 8. And sure, an aggressive deck might want a 4 mana 8/8, but it ramps players to 10 mana, and I don't think aggressive Paladin wants to get there that fast. And also, not to mention, I'm not even sure if Highlander Paladin is going to be tier 3. Another package here is going to be what I'm going to call the Aggression package. Playing with Righteous Cause, which by the way combos well with Skyclaw because Skyclaw summons 3 things in a turn, and all of the Skyclaw stuff gets +1/+1 as well as the stuff on the board. I think it's actually pretty tough in practice to run Righteous Cause because you might not even have it initially. If you're at 4 out of 5 and your opponent clears the board and then you play any minion, maybe you only get +1/+1. That's very sad. Righteous Cause gets a 1 star for me. But the good stuff is Sanctuary, which gets a 5 star from me. That is a huge payoff. A 2 mana 3/6 with Taunt. Yes, it's delayed because it only comes into play the next turn and then it has to wait another turn. But even if you consider it like a turn ahead, it's like a 3 mana, a 2 mana play that you get at 3 mana. It's like a 3 mana 3/6 then, and that's still insane with Taunt. So Sanctuary also has the cool benefit that it basically gives your face kind of Taunt, because your opponent wants to delay that 3/6 with Taunt. They can't deal with it, especially if you're an aggressive deck, which is why I lumped it in with Aggression. And then you follow up with turn 3 Sky Golem. It looks like it's only 3/4 in stats, but it is immediately 5/4 in stats because your other mechs have +1 attack include the 1/1 Microcopters, but that's not all. It includes the mech you played on turn 1 and turn 2, meaning that potentially this is a 3 mana 7/4 in stats. And in practice, that does happen. Yeah, Skyclaw might start an aggression-fueled Paladin. The final package here is the Lightforged package, also known as the Paladin package. Lightforged Zealot is insane. It's a true silver champion that comes with a free 4/2. Lightforged Crusader is insane. It's a 7 mana 7/7 that refuels your hand. It reminds me of Ultimate Infestation. Mech, Skyclaw. And then you follow up with Lightforged Zealot, and then you refill your hand near the end with Lightforged Crusader. It's real good. I think that deck will be a tier 2 deck. Lightforged Zealot, 4 stars. Lightforged Crusader, 4 stars. In summary, I think Paladin gets a few cards that are really strong for aggro, Sanctuary and Skyclaw, which is good for the Highlander Paladin, as well as it gets a new archetype, Paladin, where Sanctuary and Skyclaw find a great home for because Paladin, I think, should be built in a aggressive manner. And I think that the Dragon Paladin stuff just won't work out because it's not as strong as other control things. Oh, next up we have Priest, which might be the one class that's hurting here. So let's start with the Priest Galakron package. For Priest, these are some of the best Invoke cards out there. 1 mana 1/2 Invoke Galakron. In the Priest case, every time you invoke Galakron, you draw a random Priest minion. So a 1 mana 1/2 that gets you a minion is pretty sweet. Time Rip is an Assassinate, which just also gets you a Priest minion. That's pretty sweet. The Galakron Lover card in this deck, Fate Weaver, is pretty good. 4 mana, 3/6 dragon, lets you reduce your whole hand by 1. I think in this case the Disciple of Galakron and the Time Rip are better than Fate Weaver, but really you just put them all into the same deck. So the big question is, how good do I think that deck is? It's aimed towards a control deck. So how good is Control Priest? And I gotta say, I don't think Control Priest is that good. I'm gonna rate it around a tier 3 deck. So for the entire Galakron package, 3 stars. What Priest is lacking is a way to finish out the game. And while Galakron does offer infinite value because your hero power becomes 2 mana, get a Priest minion, the Priest minion isn't necessarily that good to close out the game, especially while other decks are pressuring you. I'll also throw in Murazan the Infinite in here. Get huge value the turn you play it, pretty much guaranteed. But the problem is, as great as this value is, I'm not entirely sure it's enough value. The late game of Priest is just trumped by other late game decks. Although, there are some very unique OTKs you can do, with Fate Weaver reducing Valen or reducing Malagos. Possible, but I think impractical. Next we have the Dragon package. That's Breath of the Infinite, Chrono Breaker, and it kind of overlaps with Fate Weaver and Murazan. Breath of the Infinite is a consecration that doesn't hit face for 1 fewer, basically, if you're playing a Dragon deck. And Chrono Breaker, people aren't excited by the fact that it's a death rattle, but it is still a decent control card. With this few amount of dragons, though, you may not be that benefited from running a dragon control deck. You probably run dragons with Galakron because those two naturally aim towards the same goals, but I don't think you always run dragons. And thus I am rating Chrono Breaker 2 stars and Breath of the Infinite, which you may not need as removal, also 2 stars. I just don't think that Control Priest as a whole is that strong. Even with the Dragon package, even with the Galakron package. Realistically, you probably run both, but I wasn't absolutely sure that you also run dragons. And then finally, for Priest, you have all the other stuff. Whispers of Evil. You'd think 0 mana Lackey was pretty good, right? 2 stars. Because when you really think about it, what deck wants Whispers of Evil? Do you want it in Combo Priest? It seems like you do, right? Because Combo Priest is a tempo deck. But the problem is, a random Lackey, most of the Lackeys you don't want to play on turn 1. There are some really good ones on turn 1, such as the one that summons a 2-cost minion, but that's about it. So do you want a random Lackey in your deck? No, you actually surprisingly wouldn't. So what I do see about the Whispers of Evil is that it costs 0, which means you could run it with the Chef Nomi package, where you burn all of your deck with Gadsian Auctioneer. Whispers of Evil is a pretty sweet card to put in that deck, and that's where most of the rating comes from, actually. Envoy of Lazul, it's a 2 mana 2/2. Sometimes get a card. You're offered 3 cards from the opponent's deck. One's in the hand, pick it to get the card. It's tough, and thus I have to give it 1 star for its inconsistency. Mind Flayer Karj. Now this is a sweet card. Piloted Shredder, but it costs 1 fewer mana, and it's quite possibly better than Paladin Shredder. There's a few times where it's worse, where your opponent has no minion or has like only a 1/1 for you to target with Mind Flayer Karj. I think it's a natural fit into Combo Priest as well, just being an efficient tempo card. 5 stars, Mind Flayer Karj. And finally, we have Grave Ruin. Quite a possibility for a number of Combo Priests. It's a carnivorous cube that, just doesn't need a cube middleman to go through. You just put the rune on something that you want to die, and then you send it to die. Problem is, these combos are really hard to pull off. They are usually really intricate, and it's like, just run Megathune. The Grave Rune has a lot of possibilities, but I think there's no current combos that are actually practical for Grave Rune. In summary, for Priest, I think that the only card that we'll see tier 1 play is Mind Flayer Karj. It's a really strong card, and it's well statted and well mana costed at a low mana cost to slot into probably still tier 1 Combo Priest. I think the other stuff is just a bit too slow, a bit too, how is the way I win as a Control Priest? So the Galakron stuff will do okay, probably tier 3. The dragons will probably join it, but maybe not. Finally, we've got Rogue. I think that these Galakron cards actually suck. When you compare the Invoke cards of these to Priests, you can see where they're really lacking. Praise Galakron, instead of a 1-2, you just give a minion +1 attack, which, by the way, you actually have to have a minion in play in order to even play this card. Instead of killing a minion, you deal 3 damage for 3 mana, which isn't great. The reward is you get a Lackey each time, which is generally better than a Priest minion, especially for tempo, but the natural inclination for this deck is to build it control value, right? Because Galakron himself draws you cards that cost 0 at the end. Umbral Skulker is nice. You get 3 coins, which are nice. You could turn them into a gadget stand auctioneer. I was thinking also about how the Galakron enablers are both spells. Maybe it's a Miracle Rogue stuff, but I think it's not that powerful. I think this all doesn't even make tier 3. 2 stars. Calling it either a tier 4 deck or a deck that sees some experimentation and then just kind of dies off. Alongside stuff that you might run in a Galakron deck would be other control cards. So I'm going to put the Dragon package up next. Waxadread is really cute, especially with Necrium Apothecary. Necrium Apothecary could create multiple Waxadreads out there, and you draw your Waxadread, which you can then play. It's a nice amount of value over time, but the problem with Rogue is, value Rogue, does it ever work? I've tried so many times, but it lacks taunt, it lacks heal, it lacks the ability to deal AoE damage. And that was not solved. And also, imagine running a dragon deck for Rogue. The literal only dragon for the entire class is Waxadread. So, of all the dragon decks out there you could be running, are you going to run Dragon Rogue just to run Candle Breath? So Candle Breath gets a 1 star for me, Waxadread gets a 2 star. And while we were talking about Necrium Apothecary, that leads me to the next bucket that I'm going to say, and I'm just going to call this the Tempo Rogue bucket. I mean, needless to say, Bloodsail Flybooter is a 1 mana 1/1 that gets you 2 more 1 mana 1/1s, which lets you activate all of the combos that you need in that deck, and it's just a great turn 1 play. Flick Skyshiv reminds you a lot of the Ungoro plant. Doesn't require combo, you just play it, you get a bonus sometimes, maybe you kill multiple enemies. It's a nice card to push your way through stuff while developing a 4/4. But what I think really puts Tempo Rogue over the top is Necrium Apothecary. Yes, it combos with Waxadread, but I'm convinced that you don't want it with Waxadread because you want a tempo effect. So you want it to draw Mechanical Whelp, you want it to draw Cairn Bloodhoof, because then you're drawing the card and you're getting the effects of summon a guy, either a 4/5 or, wow, a 7/7. And that makes Necrium Apothecary insane. It's a 4 mana 2/5 that draws you a card and summons a 7/7 when it dies. 4 mana 7/7, no overload, comes with a 2/5, comes with a free card. Necrium Apothecary was my pick for #1 most powerful card in the set. And this is a powerful set. I think you slide this package of Necrium Apothecary, Cairn, and 2 Mechanical Whelps into your Tempo Rogue deck, and your Tempo Rogue deck is suddenly not only good at dealing with aggro, but it's also really good at sometimes just Necrium blading into Necrium Apothecary, and then you do really unfair things. You play the Necrium Apothecary, you immediately draw the Mechanical Whelp, you swing with your Necrium Blade, you get a 7/7. It's really potentially super good. And then you have the random stuff in Rogue. Dragon's Horde, 1 mana to discover a legendary minion. Whatever. You could use it in Thief Rogue, I suppose, but I don't think Thief Rogue is going to be that good. I think that you don't run the Theft package in Tempo Rogue anymore. You certainly run the Apothecary package instead. Dragon's Horde, 1 star. And then you have a Stowaway, which works well with Waxadread. It also works well with shuffling stuff in your deck. It works well with creating a very creative deck. I think Stowaway will be popular enough to see experimentation, but not actually found good enough to see play in a competitive deck. 2 stars, Stowaway. So in summary, is this the time for a value rogue to rise? No, I don't think so. Not with Galakron, not with dragons. But where I do think a rogue deck will rise will be Tempo Rogue, with that Necrium Apothecary, and Flick Skyshiv will fit in there too.